the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Thanks for listening. Today we have our April recap, giving you a taste of every podcast that came out in April, which means you will hear from Lotta of Luna Kills, Mark from Sick Puppies, Johannes and Matthias from Warfield, Josh Barber from Idle Heirs, Evan from Moon Destroys, Lauren Babic, Robin from Vulvarine, Alan Robert from Life of Agony, Izzy from Glare, Tūranga from Alien Weaponry, Tony from Imminent Sonic Destruction, and Cera Gibson. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of As the Story Grows. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome. You can find links in our show notes or at asthestorygrows.com for our Discord server, our Patreon page, and our mailing list. We had a comment over on YouTube. Everyday in Montana commented on chapter 528 with Jeb Riley from Teardrops. He said, Jeb is incredibly talented and Teardrops is amazing. I agree. You too can leave a comment on YouTube, on Apple, on anywhere you might get your podcast, and I will read it on the pod. Enjoy today's recap of all the shows that aired in April.
I am losing my head. I can't seem to shake off this feeling that we're dying to be hopeless. I need sugar rush, give me sugar rush.
Was there, I mean, if you're like in a small town, like, was there a good music scene when you're like a teenager to like go see local shows or touring bands coming through? Or was it like a struggle and you got to drive and like beg your parents?
Yeah, we had decent scene, but I wasn't a part of that scene because I was I was in a different school than where the cool kids would be and the kids with bands. Okay. So that's my teenage years tragedy that I really wanted to be in like bands or something, but I didn't know anyone who like played or anything. And we are like this isn't actually like the small town in Finland. We're like the sixth biggest like city in Finland.
Oh, okay.
So we had like a great live music scene here. Okay. But I actually wasn't big on going to see bands when I was younger. I would usually just watch them like from YouTube. Like I said, I was a huge Nirvana fan. So obviously when I was growing up, Nirvana wasn't a thing anymore. Yeah. So I had to watch YouTube and see the shows there. And probably I'm a little bit of an like introvert, so it was easier for me to be at home and watch the shows from a safe distance. Yeah.
Well, then you wanted to be in a band for a long time. How does Luna Kills get started?
Well, it got started when my cousin, who is the band's guitarist, Samuli, he convinced me to sing in a band he was about to form, and it wasn't Luna Kills, it was a different project. But then we kind of understood that we work really well together, and we could make music really fast, and we had like same ambitions and goals regarding music. So we formed a band, and then we played shows and made music with a different sort of band. And in 2019, we formed Luna Kills with our bassist joining, and the things snowballed from there.
Woke up with blood on my shirt, my head spinning like I probably said a few stupid things. I'm late for work, but somehow I don't give a shit, and besides, my job really fucking stinks.
I don't know, because you've had this time off between records, has the approach to releasing music like changed and been difficult for you guys to kind of wrap your head in from, 2016 to now or 2006 to now?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of it's changed for sure. It's definitely like this the new thing with 1 RPM is definitely like a new direction for us. We've never been sort of independent before, so this is kind of the first time, which is great. And it's definitely changed over the years since our last album. It's been 8 years or whatever, so it's like definitely a lot. But I think for us, it works for us. I think it's every band or artist is different, you know. So you just got to do what's right for you. And for us, we're more of like, you know, we've been around for a while. More of like, I mean, not like, I wouldn't say like an established act, but we've been like around for a while. So we have a little bit, you know, a little bit more say, I guess, and what we want to do and where we want to go. So like, we just wanted that kind of more freedom, I guess, for us, you know. So
yeah. With the nature of streaming and the rise of YouTube, singles or releasing every song on a record as singles has become more normative. Is that like an approach where you're working on the label, like the right balance of what to share before the record comes out, or you're kind of hands off on that? Yeah,
we're pretty hands on with that. Like, and we definitely want to, you know, by the time the album comes out, we're hopefully going to have like 4, 5, 6 songs out. Like, I mean, that was the plan, but we'll see. And, you know, typically like, but most artists, a lot of people just put out singles, which is great too. And that's kind of more like the realm that a lot of people go. And I think today's day and age, you can kind of do whatever. I think, you know, as a band, I think more bands are sticking to albums and stuff. But yeah, like we try to, you know, we released our first single, There Goes the Neighborhood. We're on our second single, Going Places, and our new single, Going Places, is kind of our first like radio campaign at Active Rock Radio. So that's going well. It's got a good start with that. And we're, you know, doing that whole thing again, which is great because we've always been a radio kind of rock band, you know. So that's kind of been our thing. So but yeah, as far as singles go, in creativity goes, like we definitely have the say in what singles are released and everything like that. So it's good. But yeah, hopefully we're definitely going to, for us, we're releasing more songs for sure than normal. I mean, because it used to be just you release a single and then go to radio and then your album comes out, then all your songs are out, then, you know, whatever. But like now it's like, you got to put out a decent amount of songs before, you know, the album comes out, I think.
You guys are kind of lucky you have this built-in friendship, brotherhood to form this band, but you're in a small town as a band or as just fans of metal. What was the scene like? Where were you having to travel to play shows or see shows and like be a part of the metal community?
Yeah, we were lucky to have Saarbrücken, which is pretty big town, like an hour away from us, where they have a location where all the thrash bands visit every year. So this is a very lucky thing for us. So we in early years with like 14, 15, 16, we saw all the greats in this venue. We saw like Overkill and Anthrax and Exodus. These were our first concerts. Some of the first concerts. And yeah, I mean, Kaiserslautern, it's a bit underestimated because it's has a lot of music tradition. And I don't know if you know the punk band, the Spermbirds. They're also from Kaiserslautern. And the power metal band called Vandenplas. They're also from this town. So there are a few spots where you could play. Nowadays it's a bit that some of them has closed down, sadly. But I think in Germany in general we're pretty lucky to have a metal scene where you can play gigs.
Yeah, and the distances are not that far away, so it's easy to drive an hour, and then you're basically in every direction. There's I would say a club in at least 1 hour.
talk about this new project. How do you and Sean meet, and then what was like the conversation for, all right, we need to work on music and have a band?
So Sean and I had just bumped into each other a lot. Like I was out at Black Lodge, and I don't know if we like really kind of connected at those, but I was around when he was doing like guest vocals on stuff or hanging out with people, and we'd met briefly there. And then, you know, I've been to VFW shows of Coalesce and Casey. Like he was an idol of mine. So there was always this kind of like, God, I want to work with that guy. And then he ended up doing a guest appearance on a local band's record. And we kind of talked, and he's like, dude, this is the best my vocals have ever sounded. And I was like, well, remember me, because you ever need anybody. And so I ended up doing a couple of guest vocal spots with him. And then we had him, of course, on the Norma Jean record.
Yeah.
And dude, I just realized he's a lot like me, where I'm not so wrapped up in this music persona that we have. Like, this is my job and I love doing it. And it's really, I'm really fortunate to call my hobby my career. But it's not my identity. It's not all that I am. And that's how a lot of people know me. And Sean and I feel the same way. Like, Sean is an incredible, like, it's just this kind of like, he's just as dorky as I am. Like, we like movies. He loves, like, you know, Transformers and old school skate stuff. And like, I'm into like movies, and I really like the music side, like playing guitar and being a guitar geek and stuff like that. And, you know, we were just kind of on the same page. And then one day I had said something to him randomly. I think I said, hey man, if you ever want me to produce, like, or if you're ever doing something, like, I'd love to work with you. And he's like, yeah, we should do something. And I was like, yeah, I'll produce anything you're doing. Like, if you got a project. He's like, no, you and I should do some music. And I was kind of like, I don't know. Like, cause like, I look at myself of like, I don't write close to what Coalesce does.
Yeah.
And I would not want to, because there are some things that aren't worth like failing at, you know.
Right.
I don't want Jess is Jess. There's nobody who writes like him.
Right.
And so I didn't know how to take that. And it brought up a lot of questions to me of like, what do I actually like to do? Because like, people know me as a couple things, as like the Norma Jean-ish hardcore thing, right?
Yeah.
Heavy music. But I was in a touring pop punk band. And I do a lot of pop punk stuff. And I do a lot of writing that a lot of people don't know about on that side. Like, I do co-writes and ghostwriting and stuff. So I do a lot of that. But I've also done rap and hip hop and pop. And my most forward thing is metal. And I'm like, dude, you don't like any of the fucking bands I produce. There's not a chance.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know what he's thinking. Like,
yeah.
Does he think I do that? And I'm like, does Sean secretly want to do a metalcore band like Devil Wears Prada? Like, there's not a chance.
No.
and so we talked like off and on about it. And I kind of threw him some demos of like, maybe he wants something like this. And I remember jamming some demos that were kind of closer, and they were kind of like, I felt a little vulnerable about them, but they were still kind of in the like safe, this is what people expect out of me kind of lane. And then we just, you know, there would be periods where we wouldn't talk. He was busy with Merch Table, and I would be producing back-to-back albums. And then I remember kind of hitting him up. I don't remember the reason, but we ended up talking, and he had gone through a lot recently, losing some friends. And I said something about, man, let's get this project going. And he goes, you know what? I don't want to hear about this anymore if you don't present me some music. Like, he's like, we either give me some music or let's just stop talking about this. We're just not going to do music.
Yeah.
And my personality is, when I'm challenged and or reprimanded like that, I'm like, all right, motherfucker.
Right.
So,
I'll fucking do it.
I'll show you some music. So I had a bunch of stuff from the pandemic, that like flight credits and Airbnb credits and rental credits and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I have never been here, and it interests me. So I picked Oceanside, Oregon.
Okay.
I booked a plane ticket for 10 days. I got the rental car. I made custom things to put all my gear in, and I flew out there, told him I was doing it. And then I had an existential crisis in the Tillamook National Forest, trying to figure out what the fuck I was.
Yeah.
because I felt like everybody wanted me to do like a super heavy beatdown band or something. And then I was like, well, what do you like, Josh? Like, what at the end of the day, like, what are your favorite things? And like, you know, I started soul searching. So I'm like listening to The Cure while I'm out there, and Cult of Luna, Deftones, Lorne, Nine Inch Nails, ISIS. And I'm like, these are all the things that inspire me, like truly inspire me. Like Scores. I listen to Scores probably 90% of the year. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just want to do whatever this stuff does to make me feel this way. I want to do it. Fuck Sean. Fuck everybody's expectation of me. And so I went back to this Airbnb and I wrote what is now the last song on the album, which is the most stripped down thing I've ever written in my life. And I sent it to him, which is funny. Side note, I sent that to him, but before I left for this trip, I'd broken my phone. I got a new phone. And so I didn't change all the settings. So like I'm sitting in no cell service, and I'd sent him this stuff, and I did it when I had like service when I was in town. Mm-hmm. But like, when I got out there, I was like hours later, I'm like, dude, he didn't even listen to it. Responding. I was having a panic attack. Like, well,
that's so funny.
Dude, I was like, it's over. Like I've just showed my hand, and like I love
hates it.
Yeah. Does he love me anymore? No. So anyways, it turned out I fixed my Wi-Fi calling setting, and then my phone blew up from him, and he was like in love with it.
Oh man. Awesome.
And I had this sigh of relief, and I was like, are you sure? Are you positive? So then it was like the floodgates opened, and I wrote the whole album. There's a couple songs that didn't make it that nobody will ever hear. Pretty much the whole album
nice.
On that trip. And it's really funny. They're not the final versions aren't that dissimilar from what we ended up tracking.
Nice.
So, but yeah, that's how it all happened. And then like it was kind of like that boulder started rolling, and then everything else just kind of happened after. And it was just Sean challenged me, and I luckily rose to the occasion.
Man, so it's a long story. So Juan and I met in like about 2009, way back in the day, and we started like he had just left Torch in 2008, and then we met in 2009. We started jamming, and it was just me and him, and we were like, man, let's make this a project, you know. So we started a project called Stallone back in the day. And it was it was out of Atlanta, and all instrumental band. Mm-hmm. It was like Moon Destroys, but with that, it's just all instrumental, you know, like the riffs and stuff. Like we even released under Moon Destroys about 5 years ago. We released like the original Stallone demos.
Yeah, yeah. That's volume 1, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, volume 1, and there's actual Stallone demos 2009.
Okay.
Which
oh yeah, those are here, yeah.
Which is like the OG, like we recorded those in my house, like, oh man. That 2009 shit. It's crazy because I remember the sessions, and it's like it feels like it was like 50 years ago, or like, you know, like when you think back to when you're a little kid and you can like remember certain things but not everything. It's like that. But yeah, man, so we started that, and he had a band called Monstro with Charlie, which was like him and Charlie, Bevan Davies, killer drummer. He plays with Zoso now, the Zeppelin tribute, but he's played with Danzig. He's played with Blood Simple, Static X. And he did Monstro with them. And then so it was him, Juan, Charlie, Bevan Davies, and Kyle Sanders, who now plays with Kerry King's band.
Okay.
And so they got busy. So Stallone was always kind of a side thing. They got busy, Monstro started doing their thing. Mm-hmm. And then I was asked to join Royal Thunder about the same time. So I did that, and I got busy. So Stallone kind of like just like chilled for like years, you know what I mean? And then the first time I left Royal Thunder, you know, it was 2018, and Juan and I reconnected and started doing Stallone again, like writing for Stallone, you know, and we got finished in the studio with that Maiden Voyage EP. All the instrumentals were done. It was going to be like a Stallone release. And we said, dude, we need to get vocals, man. Like we should just, you know, we need to make this like a band and change the name and all that. Like make it more serious, you know, because Stallone was always a fun thing we did on the side. So we didn't have vocalists at the time. So like Juan ended up asking a few friends to like just do some guest vocals on that first EP. Like he got Troy Sanders and Paul Masvidal to do guest appearances. So we put that EP out, but like literally like a week after we put that EP out, COVID hit. Everything kind of just got, you know what happened. But and then it kind of fell apart again. I ended up doing that last Royal Thunder record again, and still kind of writing for some Moon Destroys in my free time on my own. And Juan was kind of doing the same thing, and then Royal Thunder blew up again. So I we started doing this again, and just both of us brought all our ideas to the table, and that's what started a few songs up. And then same thing happened. We had songs finished, and we were like, "We need a vocalist, man." You know what I mean? Like we were like, "We need a vocalist. Like we're gonna make this a real band this time, and like do it live and all that." But so he's like, "Man, I reconnected recently with Charlie from Monstro, who sang and played guitar in Monstro." He's like, "I reconnected with Charlie," and I was like, "Dude, let's ask him if he wants to do this, man." Because I'd always loved Charlie. Like we used to all hang out back when they had that band and stuff, and I was like, "Dude, that's rad. Like, let's see if he wants to do this." So that's how it happened, man. He was sending some songs, threw some ideas around, then we got together in Miami, finished tracking vocals in person, and next thing you know, we have this record. And Arnold Nice, man, Charlie's like long-term buddy. They had a band called Sunday Driver back in like. We were like, "We need a bass player," and he was like, "Well, my buddy Arnold would do it." So they already go way back. So it just that worked perfect out. And Arnold's the man too. He's like, he came in like it's hilarious, man. Arnold came in the first practice, and he knew the songs like better than we did. I was like, yeah. I was like, dude, yeah, man. It's like it was a no-brainer with Arnold, man.
Yeah.
And so a long history, and it just happened to come together now, full force. And we always had obstacles or other bands in the past going on. Yeah. So we couldn't really. Now it's our main focus and our only thing we're doing. So.
My heartbeat goes hard, I pushed you away, then you pulled me close. But I see fire through all the smoke. I breathe you in, 'cause I like the choke. Tell me that you need me, tell me that it's true.
I know before I ask this question, the answer is probably both. So has the rise of like, I don't know, let's say Spirit Box or like Poppy and like women fronting heavy music made it kind of easier to find your space in the scene, or has it just created an extra different layer of toxicity where we were like, "Oh, you're just a Spirit Box wannabe"?
I think with the whole like women in metal, there's always been this wild stigma of like, oh, women don't belong in metal, and it's so much better now. So much better now. Like there's so many amazing, like powerful vocalists. And in the early days of Spirit Box, like Courtney would consult with me about live stuff. Like she would ask me like, will you use live? And when Spirit Box had their come up, it was like a really beautiful moment. And I think too often people try and pit women against each other. And I really hope that with time that just gets better, because and it just becomes normalized and we don't have to talk about it anymore. Women can stand up against everybody else and they don't have to be compared to one another. And it's getting better, but we still have a ways to go. But I love how we're getting that spotlight now, and we're being taken seriously, because like all of us have been through the trenches, especially people like Courtney when she was in I Wrestled a Bear once. Like I can't imagine the things that she was told back then, because it was not good. It was very toxic. And I also had my come up in the early 2000s. When really the only ones doing it were like Hayley Williams, Amy Lee. Like you didn't see a lot of women doing this. So I think now it's just a beautiful thing, and I just see it as the system like correcting itself. Like it needs, like I don't see it as toxic by any means, and I think music listeners will eventually come around and just see us as artists and not like the woman part. Yeah. Even though women are strong and we can do anything, like I get it, but like we aren't good because we're women, and we shouldn't be put in just a women box. So I see it as a beautiful thing. The fact that like everyone is appreciating just the talent that is getting the spotlight now.
I don't know how much this is like Susie's realm or whatnot, but like, what are the things that like are inspiring you as a band lyrically?
Lyrically, well, in fact, in the band, everybody writes lyrics, so it's not just the singer. I myself also write a lot, and what I can say, like things that inspire me, are definitely things that actually happened or things I dream about. So this might doesn't have to happen in reality, but it has to sort of, I don't know, be in my brain somehow. But then also, so I write a lot from personal experience, definitely. But I know that the others, Sandy, for example, is very inspired by like the how do you say, society and its dark sides, let's put it like that. And then Susie, for example, has a more playful approach to songwriting or to lyric writing, and that might be more fictional maybe. So yeah, it's different, but nothing out of the ordinary, I'd say.
Yeah. Album's out. You guys are about to head on this massive tour with Under Mother and Cobra Spell. I don't think I've ever seen a tour lineup like this. That's 3 all-female bands. How did this tour come together, and like the importance of this lineup?
Yeah, so we had the opportunity to support Thunder Mother in 2023 for one show in Germany. Our bookers, they just kind of connected, and they were like, hey, does Wolverine have time to play this show? We would love to have them, So we went there and we played the show, and we instantly clicked, like Thunder Mother and us, we were just, the chemistry was right, And when they started to plan the Dirty and Divine tour that we're doing now, the booker that they have, he proposed to make this package of Vulvarine, Cobra Spell, and Thunder Mother, because it just makes sense. And as you say, we all do not think that a lineup like this ever existed in rock live history. Like, we did research on it, and I can't tell you, like, I found nothing. So I think this is really, really extraordinary what we're doing here. And you can feel that every night, and you can feel it from the crowd, that this is something people are not used to.
Going over the listing of various albums that you parodied, you have everything from Katy Perry to Springsteen to Prince and Motley Crue. What was the process like in choosing which albums to do a horror version of?
The trickiest part of selecting the albums was a combination of what's going to translate into a cool coloring page, number one, what's going to be recognizable in black and white. You know, because like you could select like one of the most iconic album covers, like Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, but there's such a dark black, and the colors of, you know, the triangle and everything and the prism, it's recognizable because of the colors. Yeah, you know, so like that wasn't gonna work. So I had to be careful what types of covers I was gonna pick to parody, you know? Yeah, it's cool. I really like the Red Hot Chili Peppers one. That one's a lot of with the Hellraiser, right? Yeah. And you know, it's like there's a lot of Easter eggs for real horror fans in there, you know, and it's not just the classic slashers or like the Jasons. Those are in there, but there's also, you know, newer properties like Midsommar or Babadook, or, you know, things like that.
When I discovered shoegaze like 20 years ago, there was no scene when I discovered the genre. My Bloody Valentine was broken up. Slowdive was broken up. It was just like going back to discover that music. There's this real resurgence in the last decade, and especially the last like 5 years. The genre has just exploded. What is it kind of? I mean, are you guys like inspired by nothing, or like, is it just, I don't know, going back and discovering those old records? What do you think has brought that sound and scene kind of back to life?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a combination of a few things for sure. Like when I was in high school and when I was listening to bands that like inspired the sound that, you know, Glare would eventually turn into, it was definitely Nothing. It was definitely Where. It was those bands like, I'm trying to think, more like Run for Cover, you know, like the earlier, you know, stuff like that. Those were the bands that really were like our like bread and butter. Like that's what we liked. But I feel like it's kind of like we never really wanted to explicitly be like, we're going to do the Nothing thing, or we're going to do the Where thing. It was always just like us trying to do us, whether people heard it or not. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know, I feel like it does pull from a lot of like older references, like a lot of like the classic stuff. To be fully front, I feel like I'm learning also like what this genre and like everything means to a lot of people at the same time. So like I'm getting put on by my bandmates on classics. Like recently I just discovered, you know, like Catherine Wheel. I mean, I had listened to them, but like going in and listen to like full Catherine Wheel, like Ferment, and listening to, you know, like the Blue record, both of those, like, you know, just like I'm learning as well, and I'm going with it too. So like I never claim to feel like, oh, like we're very much inspired by like this super deep underground, like I'm not that person, but you know, I would definitely be like, you know, for me it's Nothing. That's one of like my top bands forever. Yeah, like again, it's inspired by a lot of different things.
One of the things that's important to you and important to the band as a whole is Maori and indigenous culture. Why, I mean, outside of your background and your heritage, what has made that so integral and important to the band?
Well, you know, this is something that's sometimes hard for people to believe, because a lot of people look at New Zealand as one of the leading examples of a modern relationship with their indigenous peoples, you know, and by all means, we're not the worst. You know, we've traveled the world and I've seen how other countries treat their, you know, First Nations and or indigenous people, and it's bad, you know. Yeah. So we're no means the worst, but we're also not great.
Not as good as people think.
And not as good as people think. And for example, so we grew up being told, nobody cares about your language. Nobody cares about your people except your own people. So just speak English. You'd be better off learning Mandarin or Spanish or, you know, whatever. Who cares about Māori this, Māori that? And so every time we play a show overseas and you've got a crowd of Americans singing in Māori who would never normally have any reason to sing something in Māori ever, it proves that wrong, you know. And why that's important is because there are a lot of people here who do not get to experience that, you know, who don't have the same privilege to be able to leave the country and experience other people's opinions and absorption of our culture, where all they used to is the people telling them nobody cares. Yeah. So what happens there is they just go, I don't even want to have anything to do with being Māori. You know, I'm just gonna forget about it. I don't want to be part of my own culture. I'll just blend in and assimilate to what I'm told. And then they see, I don't know, the news shows up, alien weaponry, haka in Denmark, you know, and 10,000 Danish people are doing a haka for alien weaponry, and it makes people go, whoa, what? You know, that's crazy. I didn't know people outside of our country even cared, you know, because they've been told for years, and many years before I died, before I was born, rather. You know, many years before I was born, this has happened. You know, my grandparents were beaten in school for speaking Māori, you know, like, and obviously we're much better than that now, but being beaten is... being told nobody cares is just another step down, you know?
Yeah.
It's all ways for them to push out these cultures and try to just make us one European-centric culture.
Yeah.
And so for us, that's why it's so important for us to be able to spread this awareness and education with people, because it allows those who don't have the benefit of experiencing the world to see how the world experiences us, you know? So it's awesome to be able to do that.
What was the music scene like in Detroit or the suburbs for heavy music? Was it good? Was it like easy to start bands, or was it just like, I don't know, a struggle?
So we have a really good heavy music scene here, and I didn't really like know it. I didn't know the scene at all until I had moved back from Arizona, and me and the guys in the band, we formed in 2007, and it was then I discovered the scene around here. You know, bands like Black Dahlia Murder, Battlecross. They're from here, Temple of Void, and they're doing their thing. Some are still, and but we have a lot of great bands here, and they're all super supportive. There's no like shit talking. There's none of that here with any of the bands, and I've made some pretty good friendships with a lot of the guys here, and there's going to be plenty of nights where, hey, who's playing tonight? And you're going to just go to a local show and run into a bunch of the guys in other bands that you see. So it's good. Awesome. The scene's good here.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's talk about Imminent Sonic Destruction. How'd this band form, and was it kind of always built on this love of progressive metal?
Yeah, for sure. So the way we were formed was I wrote a bunch of demos like while I was in high school and right out of high school. And I didn't have a band or anything, but I showed the demos to a friend of mine, John Kotzian, who ran YetsyJam.com, and his Rolodex runs deep, and he really enjoyed my demos. And so one day he says, I'm going to put a band together and you guys are going to play some of these songs for a show. And so he did exactly that. He got Pat from Tiles, or he was just out of Tiles at the time. He got our keyboardist Pete. He was in a band called Space Nelson. Scott Thompson, our other guitar player, he was also in Space Nelson, but he was also writing his own solo material. And then our bass player, Brian, I had known Brian probably the best out of everyone in the band prior to us starting. He's in a band called Justify, and everyone agreed to do it. And we played one show, got kicked out of the venue, and then we played the one show that he actually wanted us to play, and really ever since then we had such a great time together. Like we got along so great that we just kept going. So that's awesome. That's how we are. That's how we got to where we are today.
I can fuck me better than you ever would. Lover, come and look my way. Begging for affliction, had you burning in the kitchen, posted on my plate. I found God in the elevator spinning when I took your God. Going down on me and living for it. I found God in the song.
Obviously, from listening to your music, you have broken out of the Mormon culture, and how much of like I don't know how much like purity culture or restrictive the Mormon faith is for girls and women. Like how much of that, and I don't know, maybe a repressed sexuality as a teenager kind of comes through in your music now, or has influenced the direction you want to take your music?
That's a really good question. I would say purity culture is a massive influence on me even to this day, and not even necessarily so much in like the negative aspects that it brought to me when I was younger. It's more so about my own healing and like transmutation of that trauma, for lack of a better term. And that really inspires my artistry. So I think it's really important, just for me personally, to be as sexually and openly liberated as possible. And I want to not just do it for the sake of being seen and like getting attention, but doing it because it's like a genuine part of what it is to be human. And I want to connect with people, not just through like shared emotion, but through like shared sensuality, I guess, that sensuality that we all have. And growing up with that being so repressed, you become so acutely aware of it in a way that maybe other people aren't. Yeah. And the importance that it actually plays in your life, especially the importance of having a healthy relationship with that part of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I've often thought over, I don't know, the last 10 years or so, like, if religious communities were more open about honest conversations about sexuality outside of just like, don't do it, Everybody would be a lot better and a little less fucked up, right?
I completely agree. I feel like you can hold whatever values and beliefs that you have as long as it's not hurting people, but you do need to be able to have that conversation, just be normal about it and talk about it. Because when it becomes that taboo and repressed, I feel like so much more harm comes out of that. And if an adult is fully educated and they have all the information they need and they decide, well, I'm going to save myself for marriage still, then that's great. But I don't think that should be imposed upon anyone, you know?